King Solomon, the wisest man to ever walk the earth, known for his vast knowledge, his wealth, and his profound connection to the divine, held a secret darker than the splendor of his kingdom. It was a secret whispered in fear among those close to him, a tale that only the oldest scrolls dared to recount. Beyond the stories of Solomon's wisdom and his majestic temple was another story, a more sinister one, the story of Solomon and the demons. It all began with the construction of the great Temple of Solomon. This holy edifice, built to honor the God of Israel, was to stand as a beacon of the divine's presence on earth. However, the stones that would shape this temple were not easily moved by mortal hands. The work progressed slowly, too slowly for the ambitious king. In the deep hours of the night, when the light of the stars flickered like dying candles, Solomon paced his chambers, filled with frustration. He had wealth beyond imagination, wisdom that surpassed all men, and yet he found himself powerless to complete this task in time. It was during one such night that Solomon heard the voice, a voice that was not human. "Great King Solomon, I can help you." Startled, Solomon turned, expecting a servant or an advisor to be lurking in the shadows. But no human stood before him. Instead, there in the flickering torchlight, a figure materialized, cloaked in darkness and shadow. The entity seemed both solid and ethereal, with eyes that glowed faintly like embers from a dying fire. Who dares to enter the chambers of the king uninvited? Solomon's voice rang out, but there was a tremble to it that betrayed his fear. "I am Asmodeus," the figure replied, its voice slithering through the room like the hiss of a snake. "And I can give you what you desire, the power to build your temple, to move mountains, to control the very forces of the earth." Solomon was no stranger to the knowledge of spirits and demons. His wisdom extended to realms beyond the mortal, into the domains of the mystical and the unseen. He had read of Asmodeus, one of the most powerful demons known in ancient texts, but even he did not dare summon such a being lightly. "What is the price for such power, Asmodeus?" Solomon asked, his voice firmer now. The demon smiled, a sinister curling of its lips that revealed teeth too sharp, too predatory. "You need not surrender your soul, great king. All I ask is this: command me, bind me with your power, and I will serve you. But remember, power over demons is a double-edged sword. For what you bind must remain bound, or it will consume you." Solomon, tempted by the offer and confident in his divine favor, agreed. With a gesture, he raised his hand, bearing the ring that had been bestowed upon him by the archangel Michael, the seal of Solomon, a symbol of divine protection and control over demons. The seal glowed with a golden light, and Asmodeus recoiled momentarily, but then, with a twisted grin, he bowed before the king. With Asmodeus now under his control, Solomon had the power of not just one demon, but many. Through Asmodeus, Solomon could summon legions of demons to do his bidding, and soon, the construction of the temple progressed at a miraculous pace. Massive stones were lifted as if they weighed nothing, and impossible tasks were completed within hours by the hands of unseen spirits. But the more Solomon relied on these dark forces, the more he felt their presence creeping into his mind, his soul. He began to hear whispers in the night, faint at first, but growing louder with each passing day. They spoke of forbidden knowledge, of power beyond even the divine, of realms where only darkness ruled. Solomon, though wise, found himself seduced by the promises these whispers offered. As the temple neared completion, Solomon's control over the demons became more precarious. What began as a symbiotic relationship, a master commanding his slaves, started to shift. The demons whispered among themselves, plotting, scheming in the shadows, but they dared not challenge the king outright, for the seal of Solomon still bound them. However, there was one demon that Solomon feared above all others: Beelzebub, the lord of the flies, one of the most powerful and cunning of all demon kings. Though Beelzebub had been forced into servitude by the power of the seal, Solomon knew that his hold on this demon was fragile. Late one evening, as the king sat alone in the darkened halls of his palace, studying an ancient scroll that promised untold knowledge of the celestial realms, he felt a cold wind blow through the chamber. The torches flickered, and the shadows on the walls began to move unnaturally. Solomon stood, clutching the seal of Solomon tightly, sensing that something was wrong. "Show yourself," he commanded, his voice echoing through the empty chamber. From the darkness emerged Beelzebub, his form more grotesque and terrifying than Solomon remembered. His skin was a sickly gray, and flies buzzed around him in a thick, choking cloud. His eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence. "Great king," Beelzebub sneered, his voice like the buzzing of 1,000 flies. "You have summoned us, bound us, used us. But do you really think that we can be bound forever?" Solomon, unfazed, held up the seal. "You are mine to command, Beelzebub. By the power of this ring, I hold dominion over you." The demon laughed, a horrible, echoing sound that sent chills down Solomon's spine. "For now, yes, but power corrupts, and even the mightiest king cannot hold the reins of darkness forever. There will come a time when you lose control, and when that day comes, we will be free." Solomon's grip tightened on the seal, but he said nothing. The demon's words gnawed at him like a festering wound. The temple was completed, a marvel of architecture and divine craftsmanship, thanks to the power of the demons Solomon had enslaved. But as the people of Israel celebrated, Solomon grew more isolated. He spent his nights studying ancient texts, poring over forbidden scrolls that spoke of realms beyond human understanding, where angels and demons waged eternal war. One night, as Solomon slept, he was visited by a terrifying vision. He stood in a vast, barren wasteland, surrounded by the ruins of his once great kingdom. The sky was blood red, and the air was thick with the stench of death. From the shadows emerged the demons he had once commanded, their eyes glowing with malice, their forms twisted and monstrous. At their head was Beelzebub, who no longer bowed before Solomon but stood tall, his form radiating power. In his hand, he held the seal of Solomon, but it was no longer a symbol of control. It was cracked, broken, useless. "You thought you could command us forever," Beelzebub hissed. "But now we are free, and you, Solomon, will pay the price." Solomon awoke with a start, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked down at the seal in his hand and saw that it was still intact, but the vision had shaken him to his core. He knew now that the power he had wielded over the demons was not eternal, that the day would come when they would rise against him. As the years passed, Solomon's fear of the demons grew. He became more paranoid, more reclusive, spending his days in his palace, surrounded by wards and protections. But no amount of magic or divine protection could keep the demons at bay forever. One fateful night, as the moon hung low in the sky, Solomon heard the sound of laughter, cold, cruel laughter that echoed through the halls of his palace. He leapt from his bed, clutching the seal tightly, but when he looked at it, he saw a small crack running through the center. His heart sank. The demons had waited patiently for this moment, biding their time, chafing under Solomon's rule. Now, with the seal weakened, they were ready to strike. The walls of Solomon's palace began to tremble, and from the shadows, the demons emerged. Asmodeus, Beelzebub, and countless others, their forms twisted and grotesque, their eyes burning with hatred. They swarmed around Solomon, their whispers filling his ears with promises of death and eternal torment. "You are no longer our master, Solomon," Beelzebub said, his voice dripping with malice. "You are ours." Solomon raised the seal, trying to command the demons to stop, but the crack had grown wider, and the power that had once controlled them was slipping away. The demons descended upon him, their claws tearing at his flesh, their laughter echoing through the night. Solomon, the wisest king, the man who had once commanded the forces of darkness, was now at their mercy. When the sun rose the next morning, the palace was silent. The servants found Solomon's chambers in ruins, the walls scorched, the floors cracked as if some great force had torn through the room. Of Solomon himself there was no sign. Only the seal remained, lying on the floor, cracked in two, its power broken forever. The story of Solomon's fall spread like wildfire, whispered in the streets, spoken of in hushed tones in the marketplace. Some said he had been taken by the demons, his soul dragged to the depths of hell. Others claimed he had escaped, wandering the earth in search of redemption. But no one knew for sure. The temple stood as a testament to his reign, a monument to his wisdom and his power. But beneath its foundation, in the dark corners of the world, the demons still lurked, waiting, watching, and biding their time. And so the tale of Solomon and the demons became a cautionary legend, a reminder that even the wisest of men can fall, that power over darkness is never absolute, and that the forces of the underworld are always waiting for their chance to rise. As for the seal of Solomon, it was said to have vanished, lost to time, but some whispered that it still existed, hidden away in the shadows, waiting for another fool to claim it, to wield its power, and to face the same terrible fate as the great king.